Hello to everybody. Hello to this JEDI Science Talk number 3 that we organized today with the Tara Foundation, of which we have 2 key players with us today. It's going to be about microplastics in the oceans. As you know, at JEDI, we're looking at topics and challenges that have a societal impact. Obviously, the oceans and what is happening on the oceans is a key topic for us. And to discuss about that, we will have 35 minutes in front of us during this Science Week and Falling Walls. We'll have 2 eminent specialists of that. First, Dr. Jean-François Guiglione. So, Jean-François, very nice to have you here.
Hi.
Dr. Guiglione is a research director at CNRS, and he's a marine microbial ecotoxicologist, and he's expert in plastic pollution. I hope I said that right. And we also have with us Romain Troublé, who is the director of the Tara Foundation. You will probably tell us more, hi Romain, about what the incredible work that Tara is done. You're also you're both in business, but also in microbiology. So without further ado, let us dive immediately into this topic. How big is the problem of microplastic? Can you help our audience that is following us during this Berlin Science Week understand? Romain, you understand?
Yeah, maybe we can start here. Hello to everyone. I'm happy to be here today. I'm managing the Tara Foundation, and we are crisscrossing the planet since now 15 years with the Tara schooner, 36 meters schooner that is going at sea with scientists, with Jeff Guiglione, which is with us today, but also many others on many topics. And since 10 years now, we fishing planktons, microorganisms in the ocean. But then when we fish this since 10 years now, we fish plastic everywhere we go in the world. So we have done that for the last 10 years, tiny nets in the ocean everywhere we've been, in the Pacific, in the Arctic, in the Antarctic, in the Indian Ocean, in the Atlantic Ocean. Every time we put a net in the water, we found plastics. So this is really about the stock of plastic we have put into the ocean over the last decades, 50 years maybe, of pollution without notice. So now this plastic is there. We saw a part of it on the surface. It's mostly microscopic, milliscopic, millimeters, 2-5 millimeters, but also many. We discover more and more smaller sizes. And what we did last year with Jeff Guiglione, which is Jean-François Guiglione, which is here today with us, is that we try to find out what are the fluxes, where this plastic is coming from. So we made a 1-year expedition in Europe across 10 of the most important rivers of our Europe to try to go in the rivers to measure what is the output of plastics, what can we find, which kind of plastic we have, numbers, concentrations, and we've done that last year, and we are now, Jeff will talk more about it, but we are now in the process of analyzing all this data. And it really shows that these plastic issues, these plastic solutions as well, most of them will be on land and in the rivers. Jeff, we can jump on this maybe?
Yeah, I would just comment on this because my feeling is that it's quite catastrophic that we can see in the oceans since several years. And we know there's tons and tons of plastic that are in the sea. And we know that 70–80% of this plastic is really coming from the land. There's 2 things that were interesting. The first thing is that the plastic, transform into microplastic. Then it cuts. It's a phenomena of fragmentation, and everything we found mostly in the ocean is already in the micro size. It's the size is less than 5 millimeter. It's And in the last expedition we did with Tara in the rivers, so we went through 9 main rivers in Europe, and we were quite amazed about the concentration of plastic that we found. We found plastic everywhere, again, in each of the stations we were. And the first result that we got is that mainly the plastic that we found was also in the size of microplastic, meaning that this is not what we expected at the beginning. We thought that the plastic will be big pieces in the river and then goes to the ocean and then transform into microplastic. Actually, where we sample, it was really at the end of the river, close to the ocean. And what we found is that mainly it's microplastic, and the fragmentation already exists before, you know. And these have big consequences when you think about cleaning the stuff. When you think about, is it possible to clean the river from the plastic? And because most of it is microplastic, it's just impossible. So all the time, what we say and what with Tara people is that the solution are not on the sea, are not on the river, but clearly behind this, on land.
So this goes against the usual image that all of us have. I mean, the fact of microplastics being found everywhere in glaciers and in pristine seas was well known and a big concern, especially for the younger generation. But we always had this image that it's, you know, bottles or plastics bags which are degraded by salt or by light. And you're saying here something radically new, that actually the microplastics already exist when they enter the sea. How bad is that? I mean, what are the practical consequences for all the cleaning actions that is underway?
Of course, there are big pieces of plastic bottles. You can find them, of course, and these are, I would say, the easiest to collect, maybe before they go into a river, or before they go into a great river, and before it goes to the ocean, of course. But what we are saying is that, I mean, the hidden part of this is that the big issue is the smaller stuff, and the smaller stuff is already big in the rivers before it goes to the ocean. So, and the smaller the plastic is, the better, the more interconnection with the life, and marine sea life, and is important, in fact.
Could you help us understand this part? I mean, plastics is not seen as how much is this interaction, the fact that these microplastics constitute some kind of toxic bubbles that go into the food chain. How much is this today well understood? Do we have an understanding how bad this is for health and human health in particular, beyond the pollution?
I would say that it's bad for everybody. There's a lot of science that is done now in plastic, and we know that at all the level of the trophic chain, we found plastic. Even if you go in the deep sea, the first thing that you find when you go in the deep sea is plastic. And when you sample the animals that are usually think as a pristine environment, actually it's not the case. You find plastic even in the deep in the gut of the animals that are in the deep. So it's everywhere. And there is no restriction of species. I mean, all the species are touched by this. And is it? Then you may say, is it important for them? Is it so bad to eat a chewing gum, for example? Then we all know that it's not so bad. You know, it goes in the feces and then it goes away. The thing is, the concentration now in the sea and in the river is so important that it's not one chewing gum, it's a lot of plastic that the animals are eating. And you know, for example, there are more than 150 species that are known in the ocean to eat plastic all the time, and half of it we eat it. And I'm going into the direction of what you are asking about human consequences, because people are concerned about the fact that animals in the ocean are, you know, have problem with the plastic. But then when it goes to the human, there's one paper this year that was in Science, I think, and they show that in all our organs, you know, it's what even for not only on the stomach but also everywhere, we find we find plastic, we find polyethylene terephthalate that are coming from the bottle, you know, and also we found not only the plastic the way you think it, but inside the plastic you have a lot of additive, and this additive goes, we know it goes in the hormones for the animals, and for sure it goes the same for humans, like the bisphenol A, like the phthalate, etc. We can see today that we have it in our body, so it comes back to us.
And also, what strikes me during the last year meeting, I think we put some virgin plastic into the rivers for quite a while, and I was struck by the fact that a lot of these plastic are like sponges for other pollutants. They stick to it because it's hydrophobic, and we find out that there is a lot of accumulations of other pollutants, maybe that are not in the plastic at the beginning, Jeff. And can you elaborate on this?
Yeah, that's what we did. In each of the river, we just put the pristine plastic, and we wanted to compare it to the plastic that is passing through, in the river. And we left the plastic for only 1 month, just before Tara arrived. And then when Tara arrived, we sampled this, and we look at all the pollutants that were attached to the plastic. And actually, the plastic is like a drop of oil. When you put 2 drops of oil together, then it goes together, and then it's only one. It's the same for the plastic and all the pollutants. And what we found, depending on the river and depending on the pollutant that we find in the river, we see a lot of pollutants attached on the plastic. And it's not a new pollution, but it's a new pollution for the organism that eats this kind of plastic. Why are they eating this? It's just because they misinterpret. It's for the animals, they don't see it as a plastic, because there's a lot of microorganisms that are around the plastic, together with the pollutant and etc. And then the animals don't find the difference between their usual prey compared to the plastic. Then they eat the plastic and also the additive and the pollutants that are on it. And that's the main problem today. I would say that most of the research today is done on a lab, so you can take the plastic and test it on different animals, but we don't know exactly what the results in the environment. But so far, we show that all the animals that were tested, it's really bad for them in different levels.
Well, what strikes me in what you're saying is that actually it's pretty new science and new findings. First, the impact. So, can you tell us a little bit what is the direction of your efforts? I mean, you just came back from this expedition from 9 rivers. What is the conclusion? What is the next step? And what is the practical consequence? Should we completely shift the way we see cleaning? I mean, these are many questions, but maybe first on your research, and then maybe on some policy responses.
The thing is, for example, Tara play a really important role in discovering many stuff about the plankton years ago, and know about plastic now. The strength of Tara, maybe Romain can tell more on this, but that was the first time last year that we put the research at a European level. And now, the idea is to help the scientists to work together, because each people are working in their own river and or in their own small pieces of ocean. And with the Tara, for example, but there are other people that are doing this. The main problem for science is to bring people together and have a broad view, of what's going on, because the technology is here. It's just a matter of working together, and Tara help a lot on that. Maybe
Andre, we need to standardize the way we measure things, and in order to act, we need to measure. We need to measure the progress we're going to make in the future. So we need to measure the time zero, and then see the evolution of things. We need to be able to compare watersheds of the Elbe, from the Thames, from the Seine in Paris, to understand how this watershed are behaved and are equipped, and where the industry is and how the industry is producing stuff in these watersheds. Because in the end, what we're going to see in the rivers is kind of a tracer of what is happening in the watershed of the Thames. So it's really about the link between rivers, territories, and the ocean. And to do so, to be able to compare things, we need to have the same approaches. We need to work together. So this first year, passed last year, we funded to do this research with the group of laboratories. I would say the first step is to show differences, similarities between watersheds that we can see at the river mouths. But it's just a start. We need now to develop a huge European program to really work with the local scientists on the same protocols, the same approaches to understand differences. And can we explain these differences by the different management, different in cultures of consumers, different education of consumers, different of policy maybe in different countries that explains such differences. Maybe there will be no differences. We don't know yet. We're going to know this next year. At least we need another year to study the samples. But I think this is really important to us, is to really have a global approach.
There are a few questions coming up. Maybe let's dive into those. One from.
But I just want, before I go to question, I really want to emphasize that, of course, it's important to clean. It's important to clean the rivers as much as we can. The river banks. It's important to clean the beaches, the ocean when we can, because this is also have a very good education virtue.
Well, actually, the first question was exactly that, as well, about education, more than about science. But there's another question, a set of question on science. You mentioned collaboration, and this is obviously a very important point, the interdisciplinary aspect. What are the disciplines which are involved in the research that you were doing? Because it seems so multifold, and where are today still some hard problems to crack, even from a scientific point of view. There's one person asking about, is space observation helping you in understanding where these plastics exist? Maybe a question for Jean-François or for you, Romain.
Maybe just before Jean-François go into details, I think that today most of the issues we have in ecology, in global ecology, is ask for scientific ecology. And this is open innovation, because you have to put together chemistry, a lot of thousands, 12 or 15 different disciplines in science to work together to address one question, which is an ecological environment questions. And this is what we really work on with Tara, to build up this open innovation with usually 20, 30 labs involved, and try to make them to work together to address a question. So I think really this open innovation we can find in the industry, in fact, today, putting people together to innovate. We need to put in open innovation more and more in a much more integrated way, also in the ecology science.
Jean-François?
Jean-François, I may compliment on the disciplines we need for such understanding of the pollution. And
that's really broad, stuff. When we're working on board, we need oceanographer just to know where the currents put the plastic, and mainly everywhere. But we know we have some gyre, and we have to understand this with oceanographer. We need a lot of physicians and chemists that identify the property of the plastic. Is it polyethylene, polypropylene, whatever? And chemists, because we need to know these additives that are inside and the pollutants that are on the plastic. And we also need modelers, and this is the main problem at the moment. To link the modelers, what are they doing? They are just predicting, based on the satellite and based on the different observation of the currents, where the plastic is going and how much it's entering. The thing is, what we miss today is a lot of data from the field, because it's easy to be on the computer, but actually when you go in the field, you understand that the situation is different. For example, we imagine all the time that mostly the plastic is coming from China, from Asia, etc. But when you go in the field, you realize that Europe is really the second continent that is polluting more. So it's really in front of our doors, and the modelization and the link between modelization and prediction of the quantity of plastic that is entering and where it goes. We need a lot on this. And I would say we are mainly the background of Tara is biologist, and we have a ground, of biologists that are working on ecology and the impact of this plastic on the ecology of the system. And this help a lot then to understand where we can go. Maybe we can move to the solution now. And the solution, the way I see it, it's mainly three partners. We are talking about, the role of Tara, of other organizations to talk about the plastic to the people that are going in the market, and that's at that step that everything begin. So the consumer is important, but also the science has to help the industry and the government to go in some direction and not some others. And maybe we can open the discussion about this solution briefly.
No, absolutely. Let's go into that. There's one question that was on one of the chats, which is very specific, is on hyperspectral analysis. This is a relatively new field for Earth observation. Still, there are very few satellites which allow this multispectral and hyperspectral. Could that be a game changer for the collection of data that both Romain and you, Jean-François, alluded to? Or do you think that we will need even more Taras that will go out and pick up samples?
Yeah, I will say that so far there's many proposals in research to find the way to calculate the quantity of plastic that are on the field. I will say that so far it's only at the project level, and there's no really good result on this when we compare what we go on the field and what we can predict or what we can find from the satellite. But we have to go in this direction. And also there's the fact that the satellite is fine because it's see the surface of the ocean, but most of the plastic is also in the deep and on the water column. We don't know where it. Some part of it is also on the animals, and this cannot be collected by companies. So we need both. I mean, everything is important, but there's not only one answer given by only one tool.
André, I think we all know there's a lot of plastic in the ocean, and we know it's gone already, and we're not much we can do about it. But it's like climate change. Climate change, the big fight is on CO2 emissions cutoff. We need to stop emit CO2 emissions to stabilize the system and to really find out where it's going to go. Because the more we put, the more, if the conditions are changing all the time, it's very hard to predict what's going to happen. Well, the plastic is the same. It's the same combat, in fact. We need to stop putting plastic into the environment. This is number one priority for me. Number one priority is really working on this topic. What are the media taken by the plastic to go from the land, our kitchen, our consumption, our industry, to the watershed, to the water level, to the waterways? This is really where we need to put effort and innovation, and I don't think satellite can help a lot on the land-based this kind of land-based issues. Really, we need to stop this. I mean, we need to stop these fluxes. We need to stop the hemorrhagie. The bleeding of plastic from our society too.
I mean, this is where your research is so important. So what would be the next steps? I mean, what is the practical conclusion of the fact that most of the microplastic already exists in the rivers? I mean, how does this have a consequence on new emissions, if we can call it like that? What are the technical, but also maybe the more policy and educational aspect, or even consuming habit?
Yeah, it's a multitask effort. The society, we have to do it globally and together. That's why we need to really work with industry in the way we make goods and how we can make goods tomorrow that are more recyclable, with less plastic, of course. There is also policy. We try to pass policies in France, for instance, the last year. And it was big ambition at the beginning. And then you can see today that with the COVID stuff and the pressure on the economics, we are going backwards a lot concerning these kind of decisions. But today, the key the key to have a better recycling system is to minimize the number of resins, the number of plastic types we use. And we are not going to this way. We need to stop innovating new plastic stuff. Because every time you make a new plastic, you need a new system to recycle it. So this is going nowhere. I think this is also a question of policy then, and also education, of course. But education is not everything.
Is there any scientific aspect in that? I mean, is this? I mean, because obviously cutting plastics is the obvious solution, but probably very ambitious. Are there some types of plastics which don't degrade into microplastics, or, as you mentioned, is just another form of pollution that we invent? I don't know if it's an area that you're looking into.
Jeff?
Yeah, first I would say that by our research, we know that mainly what we found in the environment is single-use plastic and packaging. You know, so because we found mainly polyethylene, polypropylene, polystyrene. That's the one that are always used in single-use plastic and packaging. And you have to know
like
that
what? It's like 90%, 80%.
Yeah, exactly. And it's and you have to know that just the packaging, it's 40% of the production of the plastics. So if we remove the packaging, we remove most of the pollution in the ocean, and we resolve 40% of the problem. But my second answer to this will be, there's one really interesting paper that was published this year again on two scenarios. The first scenario is we're not doing anything, and that means that nothing more than what we're doing, including what the different ministries are doing. And then it goes to a multiplication of 3 of the pollution until 2040. And the second scenario is we do everything we can, and we don't have to do something new. On the case of industry, government, scientists, and consumers, and then we can reduce 80% of the plastic pollution in 2040. So meaning that we have the solution in our hand. And just to say how much the science can help, we can help in innovating new biodegradable plastic. I mean, that works really, but the problem is that it costs 4 times more than the normal plastic. So it's probably for some use and not from some others, you know. And we can work a lot on the recycling, and so far the recycling is really bad. I mean, it's not at the level of the quantity of plastic that we are putting through. And we also can help on the education, because for the education we have to give the truth, and we can see many different stuff, you know, in the web or that are not really right. So we have to help the people to go in the good direction, you know, also for the consumers. And by doing this, there's really hope. And the plastic is really emblematic of the pollution, you know, and people are aware of this. So I would say that there is hope on it.
Yeah, but that's what plastic is fantastic. I mean, it's a magical material, in fact, for many, many things. But we made a usage of it which is wrong, since not that much, as we use it a lot and a lot in the packaging industry. What can we change? Now, sure, there is also innovation to be done, of course, in cellulose, new applications, new plastics from cellulose, from the wood, recycled wood. I mean, FSC wood. This is, I think, very promising. You can see now bottles in paper without a plastic barrier. So it's the beginning of a new era as well.
With the same hydrophobic characteristics.
Yeah.
That makes plastic so interesting. Yeah. Okay, so what you're saying is the science is there, but probably there's still this cost gap of 1 to 4 that Jean-François alluded to. So this is probably so is it a scaling issue? Is it a production issue? Is it a technological issue to reduce that cost?
Of course, the scale and also the level of technology. We need more investment into this kind of new technologies, maybe. But the bulk of the action is much more in what Jeff was saying. I mean, of course, we need innovation. Of course, we need to find new ways, replacement, but the bulk of innovation is on what we have already in hands. The bulk of what the action we need to do.
So you mentioned before, Romain, that one of your big challenge was the interdisciplinarity, the fact that tell us a little bit more about exactly where today are the bottlenecks. I mean, is it the fact that you need to integrate much more data scientists? I think Jean-François mentioned that. Is it the fact that everybody has only a partial view and you basically even symbolically try to put everybody on the same boat, which actually is a very nice image? We are on the same boat.
I think you cannot declare interdisciplinarity. You cannot declare it. You have to build it, and it takes a lot of time. And it's not because you have an EU program that put people together for 4 years that you're going to make interdisciplinarity. I think it's interdisciplinarity to make it work. I think that my experience, what we have done over the last 15 years, in fact, we have a small boat that constrained the fact that you have to collaborate if you want to succeed something. If you want to use this boat to do a huge program, you need to integrate every scientist guy, and to make sure that they all come on board for the community, and to make sure in the end that they work together as a community to address issues and questions and solutions. And in fact, you realize after 5-10 years after the missions that people are working together because they behave each other. They've been on board. They spend sometimes, and I speak about usually 100 scientists or 150 scientists working together. They behave together. They spend some hard time on board with it together. They had issues, and they are friends in fact. And in the end, you make a community of people happy to meet each other every 6 months to innovate and to do this mixing of savoir-faire and know-how and visions. And I really believe that the future of innovation is between disciplines. When they put together, we innovate a lot.
What you say obviously resonates for us. I mean, we believe that disruption comes from this interdisciplinarity approach. What would be the practical consequence on research programs? Because research programs often institute consortiums. They say you need to be 3, 5, or 7 to have that research. What could be tweaked or what could be improved? If you expand what you just said, because not everybody can be on a boat. If we expand Tara's experience, how should that transform the way research is done?
Tara is an experience. I would say it's a rather small experience in the field of science. It's a huge program, but you can see such programs when you look about the big infrastructure like the CERN, like EMBL. You find these kind of collaborations, very deep collaboration between disciplines. And we know how to do it. We did it in the past with CERN, with the EMBL as well. It's the same approaches, these European laboratories. But I think we have to find a way to make sure people work together on the long term. I think this is very important. And sometimes you don't behave with somebody and it cuts the relationship and there's no more work together. We had this in the past, but most of the time you build a group, you build a team, in fact, on topics.
Jean-François, you have any comments on that?
Yeah, there's some networks that already exist between the scientists also, and in different countries. I would say that in the research, you have the fundamental research, and the applied research, which is more close to the industry. And in the plastic stuff, with the plastic problem, we have to do both. And this is what we do in the French network and international network so far. We have to move to the applied science. And then there's hope, we found also there's a partner of Tara that found new biodegradable plastic that are made of PHA, that are made of bacteria that are eating our garbage, and then you can make polymer from this. So there's innovation going, but it's not enough. I mean, that's really a really big image of this strength against the plastic. It's not only on science; it's on science, industry, and government, and and the people that are using the plastic. So that's a big stuff, but I really have hope on it.
Yeah, and also what is very interesting is to work with the industry. Of course, it's hard for NGOs to mind the gap between industry and NGO, but we have to work together because the issue is so big that we need to put all our energies together, as I said before. But when you work with the industry, you realize the leverage we have when you change the industry. You're gonna have a huge leverage that you cannot have in the NGO world or in scientific world. Putting together, we have a huge leverage to activate, I think. And it is what strikes me a lot and make me optimistic a lot every day.
Well, we are coming to the close of this discussion. There's one question I wanted to pick from the chat. I mean, there are more than 120 people watching this on the different platforms. One is what you mentioned initially, is that the huge amount of data that you have collected for this research, but also in your previous research on plankton and so on. How do you put that at disposal of other scientists? Is all this data that you collect today used? Can it be used for other purposes? Could you tell us?
Maybe I can speak about the plankton work, the microbiome work we did about the last 10 years. We have all the data we have collected, images, metadata, and genomic data of over 100,000 samples is published, is open source, open access on the public databases, which is Pangea or Bioimaging or EBI in Cambridge. And we have the Tara team, for instance, as an example, have published 130 papers with two hands on in the biggest papers, Science, Nature, and Cell. But you can double the number of publications based on this data by the community around the world. So there's a lot of productivity on the data in the worldwide. So it's really open, and people are using the data to ask questions to them we have never thought about at the beginning when we start to collect this information in the ocean. But maybe on the plastic, I think it's a bit the same. It's all public, Jeff.
Yeah, that's the whole idea. I mean, to make it open access for everybody.
And that would allow you this also harmonization that you mentioned, Romain, initially, that we need for these 9 rivers. So, well, on this note, maybe as a concluding remark from both of you, a lot of people are listening to that. A lot of people are going to see the podcast. How could, I mean, it's World Science Day today. How can scientists, but also people interested in science, help your work, help the Tara Foundation, and help progress? What could be the small and the big step that could be taken? Maybe Romain, you want to start, and Jean-François to conclude.
We need science more and more. We need the data to be used and to be of course to be studied and published and there's a huge, I mean, the amount of this data set of the microbiome of the ocean is the first time ever that we have a database on one ecosystems, from viruses to animals, with genomes, metatranscriptomes, metagenomics, images, metadata. And you understand an ecosystem with this, so we can then extrapolate on other ecosystems. Some rules of collaboration
have yet been leveraged. I mean, what you say is the data is just at the beginning of being exploited.
But the data also is, we need to try to make standards. How we look at the plastic, how we look at the plankton. I think Tara in the past established a standard to look at the ecosystem in the ocean. And now people are wanting to compare the data to the Tara data set. So this is very interesting. We can do maybe the same on plastic, maybe, Jeff. I don't know if it's useful to think like that.
Yeah, that's the whole stuff that we are doing currently. I mean, just to be sure that all our data are interoperable. And but as a conclusion, I would more say that the science has to be taken into consideration in the big decision made by politicians, because they don't know so much, the consequences of this, and they need us, and also for the industry. And in my career, I was working on different pollutants, and on the plastic, it's really amazing how much they are asking us, the industry and the government, and we're really helping them in trying to change, And in front of the ecological transition that we are now, that we all hope, I would say that there will be a plastic transition, and that may take some time, but there's really hope on this.
Jean-François and Romain, I mean, on this plastic transition, I think that's a very positive note. I want to thank both of you. All the best to Tara. Let us know how we at JEDI, we can help you more, your incredible work. And again, thanks for your time, and thanks to all who have watched this session.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Have a good day.
Bye-bye.
Hang on tight to the COVID. Huh?